Hello everyone, and we are now going to do our second video. And this covers the lesson for the first week of October called The Bible, Our Book of Faith. So we're going to take a look at a Bible. And a good way to make sure that a Bible is a Catholic Bible is, you'll see right on the cover of it, it says Catholic Study Bible. There are a couple of other things as well. As you open a Bible, part of what you'll see, this print might be a little small, but there's something called an imprimatur, which basically means fit to print. So a bishop signed off on this. The next thing you can always do is to look for wisdom books. And if you see the Book of Wisdom, or if you see the Book of Tobit, then you will know there's the Book of Tobit. If you see the Book of Tobit, or the Book of Wisdom, then you know that it is a faithful Catholic Bible that has all of the text that we would expect to have in there. First things first, get your Bible out, take a look, test it, make sure it's Catholic. Again, look for that imprimatur, or for the Book of Wisdom, or the Book of Tobit. The one that I just showed you is simple. It has the word Catholic on the title. The first thing to know about the Bible is while it looks like a book, it is a collection of books, 73 books to be accurate. But an even better way to understand what the Bible is the Bible is a library. There's reference material, there's wisdom, there's history, there's biography, there's poetry, there's music. There's a lot of different types of liturgy, or of literature in the Bible. And it's critically important for our kids to know that God is the author of the Bible. Man was a helper, but it was the Holy Spirit who put the truth that God wanted to reveal to us onto the hearts of those helpers who wrote the individual books of the Bible that we believe to be sacred scripture. So part of the officially approved canon is what it's called, the 73 books. Truth is clear, and truth is what is contained in the Bible. But another central belief of the Catholic Church is that we also have to look at what was going on at that time to understand what was actually happening. So the scripture scholars in our church, and we have the benefit of resting on the shoulders of countless priests and brothers and sisters and other doctors of the church that did a tremendous amount of research to help us understand scripture. So anything that was written, even with human helpers, would have reflected the language, the vocabulary, the culture, the history, the geography of where it was written down. So it's important to know all of those layers to understand what Scripture is actually telling us. Also know that the church has adopted the Bible. It is what it is. We're not going to be adding another book or another chapter. But it doesn't mean that God has stopped revealing himself to us. And I've got a neat thing for you to do. Just look at a parable. Any of the parables a favorite, the parable of the sower, any of them that you like, and read it today, and then make a reminder, put it on your refrigerator to read that parable again in 3 months. And what you'll find is that you see something new when you look at it again. It means something different to us, not because the Word of God has changed, but because we have changed. So how did we receive the Bible? First, it was transmitted orally or verbally from one generation to the next, long before mankind was writing things down. We believe that it was about 40 helpers that wrote the individual books at the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and it was written over a period of about 1,600 years. This is what we call sacred scripture. But we also know that the church, through that oral tradition, that oral handing down of stories from one generation to the next, faithfully handed down that there has been things that God has revealed to us, truths that did not make it into Scripture. What went into Scripture is those things that are essential that we need to come to faith, but it's not everything that was revealed to us. And that the rest, the things that are truth that didn't make it into Scripture, is what we call sacred tradition. And tradition here isn't Thanksgiving customs and Christmas customs, it's the passing down of truth from one generation to the next. Structure of the Bible. There's the Old Testament, could be called the Jewish Testament. The Old Testament foreshadows the New Testament. We often hear it in the first reading during Mass. What we call the New Testament can also be called the Christian Testament. It fulfills the Old Testament, and we often hear this twice during Mass. We hear it at the second reading, but the first four books of the New Testament are called the Gospels, and we hear them. Another important reading that we have at Mass is between the first reading and the second. It's a psalm, and we often have it put to music because the Psalms are music. And there are different categories of psalms. Some of them are to praise. Some of them are to lament or to be sad or express our sadness to God. Others thank God for things, and others are full of requests asking for God's help or protection. A little bit more about the Bible. 73 books. There are 46 in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament. But it's important to know how each testament is structured. So the Old Testament starts off with creation and law in the first 5 books. It's sometimes called the Pentateuch. The first one is Genesis. Then we go into the history of the Israelite people. Then we go through a section called Wisdom, and then finally we wrap up with a long series of the prophets, where God revealed himself to these prophets, often to instruct us or sometimes even to warn us that we were getting ourselves into some trouble and need to mend our ways. So the New Testament, it starts off with the Gospels. The Gospels are filled with the words and deeds of Jesus Christ. And then the next section is epistles. These are letters from the apostles, those that Jesus sent out to evangelize, to share the good news with those. So they're how we guided the first years after Jesus' death and rising. So there's a great exercise in this first lesson, and it literally has shelves and it has groups of books. So it's a good way to come to understand that the Bible really is more of a library than a book. And what I'll leave you with is that there's no substitute for having your kids try out the Bible. So look at the daily readings. If you have one, you might actually have a children's Bible or a teen's Bible. That's a great way to get started. The most important thing of all, though, is get started. So best to all of you. Our prayers are with you as you continue to share your faith with your kids, and know that just the sharing of your faith with your kids will have its own rewards. You're in my prayers. Take care, and we'll see you next time.